again for another Comics Weekly wrap-up, where I share with you the trades and graphic novels that I've read for the week. I do know that the last 2 weeks were kind of like not very... They weren't filled with a lot of content, let's just say that. They were very brief, they were very short. I only read like less than 6 books. I think the second to last week I only read like 4 or 5 books. I think the last one was the same, only 4 or 5 books. And the last one I did before this one prior were all DC books. So this one's going to be a little different. This time around, they're going to be mostly Marvel books for those who are fans of Marvel. And I have to say that these books I'm going to share with you guys, they are what I'm going to call hot books right now because they're the ones that I borrowed from the library that have 0 renewals because they're kind of hot right now. Everybody wants to read them. So the first one I'm going to share with you guys is X-Men Volume 2, Muertes. And this one I thought was really cool because it was the resurrection of quite a few X-Men baddies. The artwork was pretty interesting. I really like this artwork for this one too. A lot of people are into this new X-Men title, like because it's mostly featuring like female X-Men. Well, anyways, this one starts out with some young Latin American like heiress named Ana Cortez, and she is willing to achieve like fame and power. She's willing to let Lady Deathstrike be uploaded into her, so she shares her body with Lady Deathstrike. I thought that was kind of weird. Well, anyways, she does this, and she becomes like a split personality Lady Deathstrike. She hires Typhoid Mary to help her, get this other thing. Like, I don't know if you guys like keep up with X-Men, but there was this one villain named Archaea, and she came from like outer space someplace. Her origins are kind of unknown. I don't know if they really explain where she comes from, but she's like a virus that takes over electrical stuff, and she's very dangerous because she wants to destroy. She's like Ultron, but she's an X-Men villain. So they resurrect her. They resurrect a few other baddies. They're all females. They form this like little villainous group called the Sisterhood, and of course there's the Enchantress, and she gets her powers back. I didn't even know she got her powers like taken away from her, but anyways, it made for an interesting story. I thought it was good. I thought it was cool that they brought back a lot of like deceased like X-Men villains. I guess other people didn't feel quite the same way, but I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it, just for the sheer fact of them bringing back some potential threats for future books. Yeah. After that, I picked up what I think is Volume 3, and it's X-Men Bloodline. This one, it was just, they mentioned the guy. Of course, if you don't know, if you're not up to speed, Jubilee has this baby that she randomly adopted, and of course she's a vampire, and the baby's name is Shogo, and I don't even remember how she found him, but she randomly found him. But supposedly his father comes back, and his father has this lame name called the Future, and he wants his son back, and he's willing to do whatever he can to get him back, which means starting a war with the X-Men. So yeah, it was okay. Of course, it featured mostly female X-Men with the students. The only male X-Men it really shows is like Dr. Hank McCoy, because he's like the resident doctor or whatever, and some male students. It was just okay. This one, I thought while the plot seemed a little interesting, It was just okay, and I only rated this one 3 out of 5 stars. Just because it was kind of a little dry. And another thing that I thought was different about this, and this is where a few people were questioning this, was that Storm has a daughter. She's from an alternate timeline. And I think she first appeared in No More Humans. I don't remember if that was the exact storyline or if it was a different one. But she appeared in some recent X-Men issues, and her name is Chimera, and she decided to stick around and help the X-Men every now and then. So a lot of people were confused about that, and I think a lot of other people didn't like this series just for that reason. But it was okay, so I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. After that, I picked up Thanos Rising, and the only real reason I really wanted to read this is because I knew it was a Marvel Now. And Marvel Nows, they seem to be kind of neat, even though I can't get the app on my Android to work, or at least it didn't last time I checked. But I have a feeling that they made this Thanos Rising book because they plan on featuring him in the next Guardians of the Galaxy's films. And I know that Marvel is trying to cater to people who watch their TV shows such as S.H.I.E.L.D., Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and who watch like the films. So I think that's why they spotlighted Thanos, because they kind of want the general population to be interested to find out and learn more about who Thanos is. Basically, we find out that Thanos was a Titan. He's from this moon that surrounds Saturn called Titan. And he's a quote-unquote god, even though they die, which, I don't know, does that really make them gods? But anyways, we find out that Thanos is basically just a serial killer, and he's in love with Death, who he is like, it's his imaginary friend, Lady Death, who he can never be with because she's not real, it's all in his head. I mean, this did have some cool artwork, but, you know, the whole drawing out that Thanos is a murderer was really kind of lame. I didn't really like it all that much, but I mean, it was okay, so I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. If you're curious to, you know, learn the background, the origins of Thanos, then go ahead and check this one out. Next up, we have Avengers Rage of Ultron, and this is what would be best described as, it says OGN, and I had to look this up, I had to Bing it, because I never heard of a Marvel OGN, and it means that it's an original graphic novel. So, of course, this was never produced in comic book form, it went directly to trade. And it is a graphic novel featuring, you know, past and present Avengers, which I thought was pretty cool. It shows original Avengers, and then it shows like newer Avengers and some other people I'm not really familiar with. But I thought this was kind of interesting because it's about one of the Avengers' greatest villains, and that's Ultron. Of course, everybody should know who Ultron is by now because of the Avengers' second film there, The Age of Ultron. Well, anyways, it goes into like how they've fought him in the past and how they're still going to fight him to present day because he's like trying to eliminate humanity or whatnot. What I thought was really cool about this is because I have not read any current Avengers or current Captain America stuff, so it was kind of neat seeing the new Captain America, which is the Falcon. And I thought it was kind of weird because I don't recall him ever using his shield. And the artwork in this is really, really good. The story was written kind of decent and kind of gave you a little bit more info as to who and what exactly Ultron is. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was good. I wasn't sure what to rate it. I was almost thinking of rating it 3 out of 5 stars, but I went with a 4 out of 5 stars because it was good, although it was a little weird, a little different. Like, the Ultron assimilates flesh, like it assimilates people now, which I didn't think it did before that it could. Next up we have Buddha Volume 1, and this is a manga. I forgot who the author is, but he is a Japanese illustrator. And this was recommended to me by one of the librarians that I work with. They thought it was a good story and one that they thought I might like just because I like graphic novels. Well, anyways, I started reading this, and I have to say that 95% of this has nothing to do with Buddha. And it's all in black and white, and this also helped me remember why I don't read manga, because the silly faces, the over-exaggerated emotions and stuff, and they add, like, it's supposed to be a historical story, but yet they add, like, modern things like neckties and different things like that. I thought this was horrible, and I really don't understand why so many people had rated this 4 out of 5 stars. I really just did not like it. The only instance of Buddha that's ever mentioned is near the end when he is born, and that is it. So, like, a lot of this is just totally irrelevant to anything about Buddha, so I wouldn't recommend reading this if you're interested in learning about Buddha, because it's just a waste of your time. I rated this 2 out of 5 stars. I really did not think it was that great. It was okay. That's why I didn't rate it 1 star, but it's just not worth the time reading. Okay, every once in a while I'll read some like classic older Marvel, and here's one. It's the Avengers Absolute Vision. When I selected this one, I was thinking it was going to be all about the Vision. I was hoping that it would be about his origin story and all that, because I do have to admit that I do know how the Vision was created, but I've never read his origin story. So I was kind of hoping that this would be it. And I am not going to lie to you guys, I know there's a lot of people who like to romanticize the older comics, and they like to say that that was the heyday, that's when the stories were great. But in all actual reality, this is pretty cheesy. And yes, this is stuff that I grew up reading as a kid. Most of this book involved like the origin of Captain Marvel, and that's the Black Captain Marvel. And the introduction of Star Fox into the Avengers. So it was really meh. It was a pretty bad story, and a lot of these are not even all Avengers. Like, there's a Doctor Strange, Fantastic Four. They're not even all Avengers stories, but for some reason they compiled them into this book and called it Absolute Vision. And while it does somewhat have to do with the Vision, 50% of it does not. The first story you're introduced to is the Avengers versus the Defenders, which I thought was really strange. But yeah, I rated this 3 out of 5 stars just because these are the comics that created the comics we have today. It was pretty bad, and if I had seen something like this nowadays, I probably would have given it like a 2 out of 5 stars, but because it is classic and it is canon, I did rate it 3 out of 5 stars. And I will say that I think today's comics, the contemporary comics, are much better written and drawn and everything compared to this stuff. But like I said, if we did not have these, we would not have the comics of today. All New X-Men 1 Down, Volume 5. This one has the Brotherhood of Evil X-Men from the future timeline, and two of them are Mystique's sons. One is who they call Xavier. I don't know what his first name is, but they refer to him as Baby Xavier a lot in this book. And his brother is Reyes, and Reyes is the son of Wolverine and Mystique. Well, anyways, these guys come back, and they're trying to mess with the X-Men. They're trying to stop them from achieving anything, and it's all about time travel shenanigans, of course. So, I really like this, but I know a lot of people were kind of, like, not into this for some reason. I think that the fact that it involved, like, an unsure, like, future or something like that, because they can come back multiple times and mess with the X-Men. So I thought that gives them a good potential, villain that can keep coming back and harassing them. And I'm not going to say anymore because I don't want to spoil how this one turned out. But I thought it was an interesting end too. And we find out what exactly is going on with these future Brotherhood and how they're being... Well, I don't want to say anymore. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. If you're into X-Men and alternate timelines and time travel and all that, definitely check this one out. I thought it was good. Okay, so this is where I'm going to end my Comics Weekly wrap-up with Amazing X-Men Volume 2, and this is World War Wendigo. And one of the things that I really, really liked about this book was that it was a reintroduction of the Alpha Flight. And for some reason, years ago, Marvel canceled Alpha Flight. And I really don't understand because it's Canada's superhero team. They're like the X-Men, but from Canada. And they got canceled, but they reintroduced them in this book, and I really liked Alpha Flight, so that made this book for me. I really enjoyed seeing Alpha Flight again in action, and the Wendigos, which is the Alpha Flight villain. But this time it was like a contagion that was spreading from town to town. So, I mean, the story was kind of silly. The artwork was good, though, but the story was just kind of silly. Some guy started the Wendigo, virus spreading or curse or whatnot, and it was really kind of dumb because it was it wasn't really too believable, and then it didn't really follow how Wendigos are created, they were through bites and scratches instead of through, eating, other humans, it wasn't through cannibalization. So I thought that was really kind of a weak spot in the story. But just because they brought back the Alpha Flight and the Wendigo, I thought it was cool, so I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. It would have been much better if they would have just, thought it out before. It seemed like it was written in a rush, and wasn't happy with that. So that is my weekly wrap-up for the week. I got through quite a bit of Marvel books this week. I know a few of them were X books. Questions, comments, as always. If there were any of these that you've read yourself, let me know what you thought of them. And if you have any recommendations, leave them down below. Thanks for watching, and until next time, later guys.